so nice to be here, to see you all, to meet you all. Yeah, today I'm going to convince you that there is always a way to fix accessibility, no matter what. You should remember it in case you need to do it. Let me introduce myself a little bit, a little bit more details. Yeah, my name is Glafira. I work at the small company called SpurIT. We do shops on Shopify ecosystem. If you know it, you know it. So Shopify works a lot on accessibility, so do us. Yeah, and I am an accessibility team lead for a really small team of three of us. Yeah, but in Shopify, they have only one person who works on accessibility, so we have more. Yeah, also I'm a GDE for web technologies and Women Tech Makers ambassador. So come to me in case you want to talk about something like how to become a GDE, what was my experience, how to become a speaker, for example. I also can offer you some places to speak about, some things you like. Yeah, and you can find me not only in Twitter, like in X, I don't know. So by my name, it's Glafira Zhur. LinkedIn, I guess, is more preferable these days. I hate X for today, especially from the accessibility point. Yeah, so because they fired all the team. Yeah, one more thing about me, not one. I am also a part of some program committees, so that's what I say. You can come to me and I'll give you a place to talk about some things you like. Also, I'm a teacher at the courses, web accessibility courses. They are in Russian still, but yeah, we're doing something on it. And also a runner of the accessibility club Minsk branch, but we accept talks in English if you want. So yeah, we want to run a meetup this December or maybe January, I'm not sure when. Yeah, so let's talk about accessibility. And I want to like start from the example. This is a Bootstrap model window. Actually, raise your hands if you've ever heard about accessibility first. Like, what is it? Oh, okay, a lot of us. Nice. Web accessibility. Okay, who does accessibility in their projects? I like this type of hand. Yeah, I do. Yeah, cool. So as for me, the Bootstrap is the first place when I actually saw the accessibility in action. So, and I started from removing the accessibility area attributes from the Bootstrap components. Like they provide an example, a code example, and you see their strange attributes, you just remove them. So that's what I started, where I started in accessibility. Yeah, but still, let's go to the example. This is a model window. So for us, it's a model window. It has a backdrop. It has some buttons to close the model window. Has some structure, pretty clear structural heading, the content, the actions area. So definitely a model window. So for the blind person, it will look like this. So you see, but they don't. So the blind person won't get a clue what's happening on the screen before you tell them. You have many ways to tell them, but usually, like this is the thing they use a tool called the screen reader. This tool is, there are lots of hands about it, you know about accessibility, but still I need to be sure you know what I'm talking about. So every platform has its own screen reader, like Windows has a screen reader, mobile platforms, Android, iOS, like pre-built into the platform. Also, Linux has a screen reader, but it's like really awful. It's the worst way you can get the interface is go to the Linux and run the screen reader, and you have no kind of ways to use the other one in Linux. So yeah, this is what happens for the screen reader user. They read everything from the screen. So if you present your content in text, the screen reader will get it, if you don't hide it, of course. So I show you the example of the speech viewer for the NVDA screen reader. It's a free screen reader for Windows, so you can check, you can try it. It will say something like that model window. It has 2 buttons, close, save, and the other close button. So it will say something like save changes, then type button, then close, then type button. Then it will say like heading, the type of the element, level 1, the property of the element, and then the title, like the name of the heading, the text of the heading, like model title. Cool. So they get information about the type of the element and some properties of the element and the name of the element. Cool. Will they get it in this, in our case? So the scheme, like for the accessibility, it's really important to keep in mind that almost all the accessibility relies on these 3 things, like the role of the element, the semantics of it, also the name of the element, widget or some, I don't know, some HTML kind of element like button, and the values. There are many values. It doesn't matter, like they doesn't mean the actual value, like the input value or something like this. They mean the state or the property of the current semantics item. So for the model window, the role would be dialog, the name would be model title, and the idea about this dialog is that it's model, so the modality would be a value, some property of the dialog. So the developers don't mind it when they develop the interfaces, so they forget some stuff, like they forget to add name or the role or something like this. So yeah, usually our model windows look like this. It's just a div with some model class, and I'm pretty sure it will work for Bootstrap. If you just set the class, it will develop your a model window. So yeah, so in this case, it will look like for the accessibility, for the assistive technologies, which rely on the name, role, and value of the element, it will look like this. The name will be empty, because div has no name. The role, the semantics of the element would be generic. The screen readers they don't read the generic elements, so no semantics for us. So in this case, the screen reader user will see this empty screen when they press the open model button. They will hear nothing at all. Pretty pathetic. And this is how it's the most frequent thing we miss in our interfaces. It's the valid model windows. So we have such thing like way area specification. It's an addition to our HTML, a bunch of area attributes and also a role attribute. And for each role, we have a huge, not a huge, but really detailed description. How can we use this role? So this specification is really important to know it exists, and it's really important to use it when you need to add some semantics to your divs. And it says that all the dialog elements should have, must have an accessible name. So yeah, it's really useful to go there to check everything. So let's add some area attributes to our interface. Yesterday I was inspired with all these memes, so I just refactored all the talk for today. So I added some for you. Yeah, let's add some area to get a better understanding for the blind person or for the person who uses the other assistive technologies. What is the element on the screen? So first, we add the role for the element. So we say role, dialog. Then we add a name. In this case, we connect the dialog with the existing element on the screen. So we connect it with the H tag inside the dialog using the area labeled by attribute. We won't go into the details here. Yeah, and the next thing we add is an area model attribute, which will prevent the screen reader from going outside the model. So when the model is opened, the screen reader with this value, they will run only inside the model. But in case we don't use this attribute, they will go to the page. Like they won't stop in the model. So yeah, it's really important to stop them there. So yeah, now the screen reader user gets some information about our model. Like it's obviously a dialog. When it gets there, the screen reader will read model title and will say the dialog semantics. Then when we go through the dialog, like using some buttons on the keyboard, we'll hear additional information, some additional information like model title, heading, level 1, then close button. You don't see the word close here, but it's a trick. Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, the text of the dialog with no semantics, like the text is the text. Even if it has the role paragraph, screen reader won't read it. Because it's too redundant, kind of. Yeah, the other close button and the save changes button. Cool, now we have something for the screen reader. So let's talk about accessibility. Accessibility is the way to improve our interfaces, to make them better for everyone. So we allow everyone to use our interfaces. It's really important and good stuff. Everyone works on it. Finally, I can say that because it becomes really popular, the topic, I mean. So yeah, everyone works on accessibility. Let's stay here. So why everyone works on accessibility? This is a pretty old statistics from 2018 or something like this. So according to the World Health Organization statistics, there are 15% of the population of our planet they have like medical conditions, disabilities. And in real numbers, Earth's population today is about 8 billion. I don't know, it's growing every second. Oh my God, sorry. Yeah, so obviously there is one special person. I guess it's me. So the 15% of the population, it's a huge number. It's about 1 billion people, and we just cut them from our interface. Not all of them, but still, and not only from interfaces, but also from the environment and from some services and so on. So yeah, for these people, internet became a place where they can do things. So by developing better interfaces, we can improve their experience. Why not? We do it for all the other users. Yeah, so in this number doesn't include the people who are getting old, like us. For example, I have really low vision for one eye. So yeah, I guess it will become worse in future. So any conditions like a bright light with our color contrasts for Mac OS, it just doesn't work. Some broken arm or some temporary conditions, they are not included in this number, and they, of course, do the difference. If you're not inspired enough, not you, but your companies or something like this, if you're not inspired enough by the empathy, so you should check the legislation for the country. Like there are maybe some laws about the accessibility, so you must include accessibility into your interfaces. So in Europe, it's upcoming legislation. It will start working in 2025. So all the interfaces should be accessible by 2025, like digital resources publicly available. So let's do something. Yeah. And according to the United States statistics, it's about 400 lawsuits raised every month. Like every month, 400 people goes and says like, this interface is not accessible. I want get more money for my life or something. No, so there are different cases, of course. But yeah, about 400 lawsuits per month, and the number is growing. So people, they become like more aware of everything, so they are trying to get the more comfortable environment for them. So, what about the development? We should think closely about the accessibility, like we're developing our interfaces, but in case we are kind of belong to some groups of developers, we should like focus on it. Not only accessibility, but also on our own skills as developers. So let's grow some skills today. Yeah, if you're a front-end developer, you know, like I'm a front-end developer, so I am really interested in making good interfaces, so I read a lot. So I assume that the average front-end developer knows everything to have more or less accessible interfaces by default, because we use semantics, we use all new cool features, and so on. So in case you're a junior developer or you've never heard of accessibility, what should you check in your interfaces? First, if you're, that's what I told you about, if you're using some libraries where the accessibility is pre-built inside the library, so please, please, I beg you, don't remove the area attributes from your UI components. It's related to any library where you can have these examples, like to copy and paste them. Don't remove them. It's like sometimes these attributes will be added by JavaScript. So please don't rewrite, don't overwrite, leave it as it is. Yeah, so the main thing here that, and the main fear that area attributes will change your style of the document or some behavior. No, it doesn't touch any of your CSS or JavaScript. It's only for assistive technologies like screen readers or voice controls, something like this. So only them will get the area attributes. Yeah, here I have some code example. Let me check. Yeah, this is actually a funny mistake. Like junior developers do, like not only junior, but everyone who just gets into the accessibility, they do this mistake. They hear something like area attributes, and they use this word area, like area, to name their attributes. For some reason, no validators will say to them like it's the wrong usage of your area attribute. So it should be written in the right way, like area by I. So it's funny, but I meet this mistake a lot in the developer's code for some reason. Yeah, so please use the area, the right area. The next would be the developers do it sometimes. They misuse the name of the area attribute, or they use an existing attribute. So there is no such attribute as visually hidden true yet, because they are discussing now the possibility to add this kind of attribute to our code. Yeah, so in case you want to visually hide something, use the class called visually hidden. It's a bunch of CSS properties, so you can find it and like add it to your code. In case you want the screen reader see something, but not the sighted users. And a huge group of the mistakes is coming from this logo. Like, if you are a React developer, you will like mostly they do a lot of interesting mistakes using accessibility. So these developers usually they don't mind HTML, like they don't know it sometimes, or I mean full stack developers, they are like, we are JavaScript developers, layout is not for us, we hate HTML, like HTML should be in some library, UI library, we won't touch it. Yeah, so these kind of developers, they're using the ready-to-use library, but all the libraries which include accessibility, they have some, I guess, no, I forgot the word. They have some instructions on how to use accessibility for this library. So the developers just don't mind these instructions. They don't scroll to the bottom of the page where there is a small area called accessibility. So yeah, in this case, you can get the wrong way to implement your component. And also the developers who create custom components, for some reason it's mostly buttons, are affected by this issue. Yeah, so this is the kind of not real, but pretty frequent example of the code I get from the full stack developer. It's a div called header, div called navigation. Maybe there is a div with, which is presenting the list of the links. Links are divs too sometimes. So div for the product card, it's okay. Div for the button. And they have this roll button, so they read about it, and they like, oh, I'll add the roll button, and it will be a button for the screen reader. Yeah, of course, for some time it will. So what we should consider. First, about I really like this div roll button because there are huge arguments about it in Twitter. You can go to the conference and you can meet this code like, oh, if you need accessibility, please add the roll button to your div and everything will be okay. So, and the points not to add like real buttons are these. Like first, they say that in a form, if you put a button in a form, the button will submit the form. Of course it will. So it's like designed like this. So if you don't want the button to do the submit, please add the type button. We actually do it across all the, like it's the default property we have in the button in case we don't need it to submit the form. So we use the type button. It won't submit anything. So please use it. Also, the second idea would be that if we use the disabled attribute for the button will become disabled, so it won't be focusable, so it's bad. Yes, it is, because it's designed like this. It was the idea of the disabled attribute. So, of course, in case you don't need this behavior, like the button is disabled, you can't focus on it. Of course, create some custom component, but usually it's okay to have the button not focusable when it's disabled. It's okay. And the screen reader will find it perfectly. And the third one is that, of course, the button contains a lot of styles, predefined styles for all the browsers and so on, but I've never used this particular solution. But you can write like one line, like I've used it just for the conference. So, and you set all the styles for the button across all the browsers. Yeah, so you should use button in case you need a button, please. And also we'll change the divs into the header and nav text, and we'll get some semantics. And for the screen reader, it's like really, really useful because the screen reader can divide our screen by our landmark tags. So if we use the banner, header, footer, footer, right? Aside tag, also main tag, the screen reader will understand the like how the screen is divided. So they can't see it, but at least they can look into the list of the landmarks in case we use landmarks. So please use the semantics for the landmarks. Yeah, so this is the first, actually, first rule of area. Don't use area. So in case you are trying to write some area attribute, just don't write it. Like, if you want to say like div role button, think about it. Maybe you should use button. Div role navigation, just use nav tag and you'll be all right. So the next thing would be, it's a real, not this one, but there was a real example. We had inputs, and for the inputs we had the tooltips, and the developers decided that why not, like, and they changed the input semantics into the tooltip semantics. So screen reader stopped read the input at all. So it relies on semantics. And because there is no kind of good implementation for the tooltip, the screen reader will read nothing. So in case you want to rewrite the semantics of the element, please think twice. This was made, I hope, obviously by mistake, but yeah, it happens a lot when we rewrite some semantics because we think it will be better. Just use some, like, we usually use it for like divs, which should become lists. So we write div role list item. Use ul li, something like this. So it would be better. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so don't override the native semantics. And it's actually the second rule of area. Don't override. Yeah. And it doesn't matter who you are. And by this, I mean, like, all the developers do these mistakes. It's always connected to the labels, to the names of the element, to the accessible name. And I can't imagine how many ways they have to mess it up. So and one of the most, sorry for using the example of the conference, but yeah, one of the most frequent issues here is the icon buttons. We don't have a visible text, so we don't code it. We don't use any alternative text for our button images or something like this because we don't have it in the design, we don't have it in mind. But the screen reader relies on the name of the element, and the name is empty because there is no property for the name. So in this case, in the case of the icon buttons, yeah, don't forget to add the accessible names. And in this case, you can use the area attribute. So it's a good place to use area attributes. So just add the name. And in this case, I even add some specifics to my LinkedIn button because it's not a button, it's a link. Yeah, so because there are many LinkedIn links on the screen, on the page. So I need to make them unique. So the screen reader user would understand which LinkedIn is the speaker's LinkedIn. So yeah, do it. Also, I get it a lot, like the developers don't know how the native HTML works. So they just use the label tag and then the input, and they don't connect them. So in case you don't connect, you just use the tags, it won't work as an accessible name for the element. So you need to connect them using native way, using the for attribute. And it's really important to put the right ID to this for element because, you know, like it happens a lot too. Like you need to put the inputs ID in the for attribute. Yeah, so it's actually the fifth rule of area. All interactive elements should have accessible name, must have accessible name. So, you asked me where's the third and fourth rule of area. They are area to have like 5 more talks about them. The third rule would be don't use role presentation or area hidden through attributes on visible focusable elements. The idea behind these elements is that they remove semantics. The role presentation will remove the only semantic only, not the text of the element. And the area hidden will remove everything, like, and the semantics and the text. But they won't affect the possibility to focus on the element. So if you have buttons in your block, like here, I have filters model window. There are lots of interactive elements. I can tap through them with the keyboard. So when I close this filter area, it goes behind the screen. Because we can't animate the display property, kinda, but I heard we'll have a possibility to do it. Yeah, so, but still, we still have these like through the animations and so on. So we can't hide this window as we want to do it. But in this case, the developer just move it from the screen like smoothly, but it stays, and they say area hidden true for all the filters area. So the screen reader won't read the elements there, won't read their semantics, but from the keyboard, they are still available. So you can tap through all the elements, every element. Like in Firefox, there is a cool feature. You can check the tab stops on the page. So you just like switch it on, and it will show you the number, the order of the tab stops. And you see there are 15, 16, 17 behind the screen. And the first, after this, like after 12, the next would be 45. So 45 minus 12, you need to tap through all the hidden elements. So it's an accessibility case, and we should consider it. The screen reader won't read anything. The screen reader will say like blank, 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 blank. So yeah. Yeah, and the first rule of area is that all interactive area roles should be operable by keyboard in a proper way. And the only thing I can today tell you is there is a cool APG page for creating your own custom controls. It's made by W3C. So there are instructions on how to develop the keyboard interface for your controls. I show you the example of combo box, for example, because there is pretty much a thing in today, at least, because I know in future we'll have, in HTML, we'll have the native combo boxes, which we can design, style. So for now, we can style them for everyone. So we create our own, and yeah, we get a lot of accessibility issues for the combo boxes. So just check the instructions there. Yeah, a quick reminder what we're talking about. So please read the area specifications. It's a lot of interesting and useful information. Also use semantics. Yeah, but don't overdo it. Like, I have a lot of examples when my students are starting to use navtag everywhere, where it's like, if it's 2 links, it's navigation. If it's like 1 link and there is a possibility to add 1 more, it's navigation in future. So the screen reader will get all this context. They got into the area, they set focus to the link, and they read all the semantics, all the parent elements. So every time they will read, like, it's a navigation, it's a list, it's item 1 of 10, and it's a link. So 4 things they will read in case you overdo your semantics. So just remember, the users hear a lot of information, so we need to reduce it in a smart way. Yeah. Check the accessible names for the interactive elements and actually for the landmarks too. And you can do it through the Chrome tab, accessibility tab, and also in Chrome there is an accessibility tree, so you can check it there. And please check the keyboard navigation, read about it, because it's a pretty difficult topic. Yeah. A little bit more reading. for you. There is a cool document called Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. In case you need to get more instructions or more pain, just go there. They finally released the new version of it, WCAG 2.2. And there is a WCAG 3 coming one day, maybe. Yeah, they changing everything there, actually. Yeah, so, and for the developers who doesn't want to read, there is a cool interactive document. There are filters. You can filter. You can find, there, it's not on the screen, but there is a filter when you can check the tag, like keyboard, design, links, or something like this, and you'll get all the recommendations, all the requirements for this particular element. Yeah, so, and here is the link to the accessible components, design systems, and guideline I collect. So it's Notion link. Please feel free to add some comments there in case you know more design systems, guidelines, and components libraries. So they are kind of accessible. They care about accessibility, so check. Yeah, this is me. It was really good to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your attention. And yeah.
Thank you for teaching us about accessibility. Any questions?
Some questions, that's good.
Thanks for a great talk. So one of the biggest problem as a developer we face is tooling. So what do you think, like what can be improved in the tooling part of the accessibility and how to make it more accessible to the developers?
In many ways, you know, like, yeah, so when I work, I use mostly, to test the websites, I use mostly the Chrome instruments, obviously. The accessibility tree is really cool. The only thing, like, I can check the whole accessibility tree for the page through the DevTools in the Elements tab, or I can check the one of the elements to see all the properties. These days, sometimes it gets mad, the DevTools, I mean, like, because they are changing some semantics of the elements, they implementing some interesting stuff. Like, if you don't add the th tag to your table, the screen reader won't read it as a table because the browser doesn't give this information to the screen reader. It's considering as a content table. So if you don't have a heading of the table, it's not a table at all. So it's good you don't need to add the role presentation attribute to hide the table from the screen reader, but still. Yeah, so these days DevTools are improving, but there are bugs. So we sometimes like really, like yesterday we saw something and today we don't see it. So what's going on? So, yeah, and also we use a lot of additional stuff like plugins. We mostly use plugins for auditing the web page, and it's really cool that the Lighthouse can do the accessibility review, but also they now are implementing the ways to do this process. So you can do the whole page, or you can do it like step by step or something like this. So maybe it will be better, like it will, for now it doesn't work for accessibility as far as I know. It works more for performance or something like this, so yeah. So for that kind of things, we use mostly plugins like Axe DevTools, but again, as far as I know, Axe uses Lighthouse as a core. So yeah, we really like want such kind of that Firefox has the focus positions like on the screen. In Chrome, there is a source order, like you can check the button, this checkbox, and you can see how the numbers of the elements, how they go inside your source. So you can check the visual order if it's the same as screen reader gets. So a lot of cool instruments. For us, we are mostly kind of using some additional stuff for reports, because we need to do some reports, like really big ones. Something like this. I'm not sure I answered your question. Definitely not sure. Yeah, maybe something else.
Thanks, Glafira. Always enjoy talks about accessibility. I think it was out of scope for your talk, but there are applications, of course, that are not HTML based. Like you can imagine Figma or Miro. They render something to Canvas.
Yeah.
How about that? Is there some JavaScript API for accessibility, and what is a common way to do that?
I don't work a lot with Canvas, but there are ways to copy the HTML, not copy, but to add a layer, HTML layer to your application. So for us now, it's the only way to add some accessibility to the Canvas-based applications, to add this like invisible layer for the screen readers, for the keyboard users. No, keyboard users, I guess Canvas has some keyboard support, not sure. Yeah, so for us now, it's only adding the extra layer. So unfortunately, I'm not sure Figma does something on accessibility as far as I know for now. So they improve it. So this is the way for now.
Thanks for the talk. Do we really need to make all interactive elements accessible? Because in your example, like in model, we have two close buttons. Is it helpful for a screen reader user to hear close button, close button, close button? And they probably know that model can be closed by escape, for example, if it's dismissible.
So in accessibility, there is a way of thinking. You provide unequal access. So if something is existing for everyone, like two close buttons, why should not it exist for the other, like for the blind person? So it still exists. But it's more, the first part of the question is more the UI UX question. Like, why do you have these two buttons on the screen?
It's maybe just a very simple example. For example, you can have a really big list of elements, and each list item can be has some actions, for example. And for accessibility, we can make some fancy design when we can navigate with keyboard and we have some shortcuts for the actions. And it really doesn't helpful at all to every time hear that there is button and there is inside another button and menu and everything. It's just awful UX for screen reader users.
Exactly. You even don't have such type of the control in accessibility, which will be read in the right way and operated by the screen reader in the right way, like these lists with a lot of actions. So kind of the only way to do it right is to provide some other interface for the blind person, but it's really important to explain them that there is the other interface. And the same for the sighted users who use the keyboard. So it's for them, and it's important to understand when they get into the list to understand the shortcuts for this list. So some kind of introduction to the keyboard navigation. But in our application, we now use grid structure, like interactive grids for such elements. So it's rows and columns, and you can move through them with arrow keys, like through each control. In this case, each control should have a unique name, like it's the control for this particular role, kind of. So yeah, it can be tricky. So for the difficult interfaces, of course, now I feel like we need not only to implement like the basic accessibility, like we are already passing this step. So we need to invent some ways understandable for every users to get these difficult interfaces accessible. Yeah, but it's kind of a good issue to discuss. Yeah, so something like this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for a great talk. Based on your experience, what is the learning curve of ARIA? Like, how fast, how soon typical developer will understand it and starts to integrate it mindful?
Never. The answer is never. Like, no, of course, if they are interested in the topic, they will learn really fast. And they will understand, like I always say, that you need name, role, and value to be supported in your mind, in your code. And then you go to the specification and check if this element, if this area attribute allowed on your role. What you can do with this role, with this particular role. Like you can't set, for the button, you can't set area selected attribute. You should use area pressed attribute. So you learn it from the specification, of course. So in my experience, the developer who is interested, they get really fast into it. So it takes for them months or something like this to do everything without any control from my side. Like they only come to me and ask, like, is it right or not, or do you know the better solution? So yeah, if they are not interested, the answer is never. It's real. I don't know why, but they do the same mistakes every time. So it's pretty interesting how it can be not interesting to them. Yeah, something like this. But yeah, if they are interested, the process is really, really fast and cool. I like it.
All right, thank you. Lots of questions. So if you guys have any more, you can meet with Glafira after. And that's all.
Yeah, thank you so much.